program that I'm working with, which is Astral Gold. And so you can see here, what are the implications? We know that, the full moon illuminating the ninth house, we talked about ninth house matters, Sagittarius, travel, religion, philosophy, archaeology. So we're starting to see what's happening with the Giza pyramids and archaeological matters that are coming to the forefront of perhaps ancient technologies that were once predominant by our ancestors are now being found again because of cataclysmic events. Things have gone under the soil. This was also when Pluto was in Capricorn, right? Things that were hidden. And so Pluto still rules things that are hidden. And in Aquarius, it's about technology. So the hidden technologies that we had forgotten about, again, amnesia, we came from a state of amnesia, is being reactivated right now through the collective consciousness. And so, I'm even thinking too, going back to like kindergarten, middle school, high school, right? If we're looking at the history books and thinking about what you were taught during that age period. I'm a Gen Xer, so I was taught a lot about the 60s and the hippie movement. We even had days where we would dress like hippies, right, and celebrate these different time frames in history, which is great. But perhaps with this full moon illuminating in Sagittarius, is what we were taught, again, early in life, does that still hold true today for what we know now? And with the new information that we're being given through these hidden technologies that our ancestors didn't even know about. So they were crafting stories and telling tales about their own experiences and maybe not having the full picture, right? Because Sagittarius is the higher octave view, right? Likes to pull out just like Aquarius. I think of like a Google lens, right? You go really, really deep and you can see, the landscape, and then you pull out and you can see, again, the bigger picture. And so with Jupiter and Sagittarius, it's all about the bigger picture. And where has our bigger pictures perhaps been distorted? And now it's just being broken, right? I'm seeing like the mirror that we're looking at is just shattering apart, right? These constructs of what we perceive reality to be. Because again, we've got Mercury in Cancer, which is how we think. So even matters of the home, right? Like I'm even thinking of genetics. Like we talk about, as the noise is coming in, but there's a hot topic about cloning, right? And people are being cloned. And I'm thinking about, when we have children, are they just little clones of us? Right? Because you can see the genetics. Like I look at my son sometimes, and sometimes he looks a lot like me, and sometimes he looks a lot like his dad. I think, gosh, genetics is so interesting. I'm like, we are cloning ourselves in a way when we give birth, right? And the language, that's what it is. That's what we're doing, right? So are we allowing to see ourselves and the reality perhaps in a new way? And coming back again to Pluto and Aquarius, have these ancient technologies that we thought were ancient and we're told were very, very old or obsolete or didn't exist, were they really the technology of the future? Has AI been here the whole effing time and they're just now disclosing it to us, right? Because I'm thinking about disclosure, again, Pluto, things that are hidden. And with Sagittarius, it's about things coming up to be seen. A light is being shown right now because we have a square happening right now with the North Node in Pisces. Pisces is about illusion. It's about, I'm thinking of almost like have you guys ever seen the Percy Jackson series? When I forget which of the episodes, but they had to go, save one of their friends and they got caught. And like, it almost looked like a Las Vegas style type of establishment. And they were eating the lotus flowers. And next thing you know, they've lost time because they were just so enamored with the lotus flowers that they lost their mission, right? They forgot what they were really there for, their purpose, because they got lost in the play of narcotics, of substances that take you out of this reality, right? To take you into different realms, which is very Pisces, right? And so we're seeing too on the big stage things that are happening with big pharmaceuticals, right? And how people are having a relationship or had relationship with certain substances. And some of it may have been, nefariously introduced. Who knows? This is all just for education purposes only. I have to preface that as I'm stating, again, this is just for entertainment. But can we entertain the fact that we may have been induced into certain beliefs, right? Things out of our control. Even in early childhood, we know if you study any of Joe Dispenza's work or Dr. Bruce Lipton's work with epigenetics, and how basically our subconscious structure is formed when we're in theta between the ages of 0 and 7 years old. That's, little children, little beings, when we were that young, that our mind was just in that programmable state of theta, right? So anything that was programmed during that time was what we believe to be true. It's what's ruling the roost in our unconscious programs right now. And so, with Jupiter in Cancer, it's about foundation. Again, what did you learn? What did you see? What were you shown? What were you programmed to believe? What were your parents listening to? How were they speaking about love, money, politics, sex, death, taxes, higher philosophy? I know for me, being a Gen Xer and just coming from the ley line and the timeline that I came from, I was a latch and key kid, right? And I watched a lot of television. That was my babysitter. So I had a lot of programming. And I know that from the age of, I believe, 4 is when I first started watching television, consistently, because again, my mom was a single mom. My parents broke up when I was 4. And so she had to work a lot. And so again, had to go home, take care of myself. And that was my babysitter, right? So I understand and understand that there's programs running on in my deep unconscious that have basically helped curate this reality because I'm willing to ask the question, well, who is programming? What was the agenda of those people that were programming, right? The people that were responsible for the programming. What did they know about my mind that I didn't know already? And we're just now getting downloads about how impressionable and how the mind is truly a technology. It is an advanced technology, more advanced than we can even um, perceive, right? Because again, the program has taught us not to perceive our greatness, if you will, or only allowed us to see a certain periphery of what we're capable of, right? I'm thinking of the story of when the scientists, the priestcraft of science tell us you can only use 10% of your brains. And then you have like a Bruce Lipton coming on and speaking his science speak, saying, actually, we use 100% of our brains, and this is why. And then he goes into the neonucleides and he goes into the science, right? Like stuff that I don't understand or I haven't anchored in yet. So, but he's willing to tell another story, right? So it's like, wait a minute, you have a certain group of people saying that that I only use 10% of my brains, and now you have other new science is saying I use 100%, but just from a different periphery. Like, which is it, right? So, as I was again sitting in contemplation last night, I thought, well, if I don't know what the truth is, right, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to feel into it. What feels true to me? And so I sat, and then all of a sudden, my inner child, Chiron and Aries, started imagining, well, what if I can use 100% of my brain? What would a